Hello everyone, this video is to go over the training case for index Xmatch and sequence. If you have not done so already, please try the link in the first comment and try this case yourself, and then come back to here. Just want to use the Xmatch to find the first Z that appears in the data tab for the listed column. This is listed as very easy, although maybe it's either an easy or a medium in reality, because you want to also use the indirect as well. So we can first start with an indirect, and we want to reference the data tab, and then we use the ampersand to combine it for column B, another ampersand, and the colon, and once again get the column B. This will probably give us a spill error. Yeah, just because it can't fit the entire column all the way in. But from here, we can then use the Xmatch. And what we're looking for in the lookup value is just the letter Z. See, we do match. Try that again. Okay. For the next one, we are going to use an index for this range, the A1 to T101 on the data tab. And we're going to use the row and column index numbers. So I just like to write the example answer above just so I don't sort of forget what it is. And then I can just do an index, and then I can just go over to the data table, and it was A down to T101, which I have. I'm going to hit F4 to lock it into place. And then the next piece is the row number and then the column number. And I do match. Right. And then for level 3, we want to use a combination of the index and Xmatch. So we want to use these two different emojis to come up with what is the letter at the intersection of those two. And for this one, I'm going to create just a new sheet because I can really work for 4, 5, 6, 7, everything sort of all together at this point. So for this sheet, I'll start example 3, and then I'm going to use an XLOOKUP on it. And then what I want to pull back is this information on there. And then I can just put in a 0 at the end, so it'll work all the way down. And so then I have my row and my column. So I can use this for like the Xmatch. So for this, you can do an Xmatch. I'm going to look up this. And then on the data sheet, I want to use sort of this column here to find it. It's important to note that I'm actually starting at A2. That's where the data is. And even though for the previous index I used A1, I'll actually be starting on B2 for my actual data set here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the column. Because it's always in relative position. So this, you can see, is column 6, but that's really like the 7th one over. But when we take it with this index, it applies on there. So then I can use an index formula Shall use it down here. And then I want my row number and then the column number. And I have that here, my row, and then my column. Okay, and should be I. It is. And then we take the question numbers, highlight this, put the answer up there, Alt GT. We'll pull up a data table for what if, and then I'm changing the column inputs and where the example 3 is, and I'll just run through. Okay, then for levels 4 through 7, we're just dealing with these arrows. And we have to sort of find out what the word is. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it over to here, change this to example 4 on there. So we can sort of see we're getting the initial part on here. But we want in this case we want to go down and we want it to be a total of 7 spaces. So we still want this information. So this is still our starting point. Um, but then what we need to have is we're going to have like a sequence on the row and a sequence on the column. And for the first one, the column isn't going to change because it's only going to be a down arrow, but we want to sort of account for both. So I just want to give myself a little bit more space. So I'm going to move that over here. And so, for the down arrow, you can sort of see we would want to impact the row and then not impact the column. So I'm going to do like an X lookup based on the arrow. And then I want to look for it here and then pull this information here. So, and I'm going to drag this over one spot. And this is like the arrow impact. So then I want to build a sequence for each one of these. And my sequence is going to be like this number of rows, and then to see if it has an impact on there. And then the starting spot will be this, and then the step will also be this. So it's going to move one step positive forward. And then I want to do the same for the column. The column, I now get an error because I get a 0. So it's saying like no 0 rows. So I want to just adjust for this. And what I'm going to do is just saying like if this, equals, or I can just say if this equals 0, then 1. Otherwise, F1 times C6. I'm also actually going to throw in an absolute on there. Um, and the reason I'm doing that is not so much for this level, but it's for other levels. When we move like up or in a negative direction, I don't want the negative to be impacting the number of rows. I want it to sort of impact in our steps on there. Okay, so now this should work for that, and it does. And then for our index, I just need to change it to this and this. And then I just put in a hashtag for each one of these. And then we can see we got the word example. And then all we need to do is wrap this in a concat statement. and it will work. And then we can just see we have 51 down through 130. Actually use the sequence for here too. Okay, so we have 51 through 130. And then this is our answer. And once again, Alt DT, pull up a data table. We're going to replace this example 4 with all of these items. Okay, and we can see, okay, it looks like for the first section it works. And then we start to get some errors in there. So let's do some debugging. Put in 71 on here. So we have an error here. We're saying if D6 equals 0, which it doesn't, then we want the absolute of G1 times D6, which is true. Uh, is that true? That doesn't feel true. So we want the absolute of not G1 times D6. We want D1 times D6. Or no, I'm sorry, F1 times D6, because that's the length. So we want the length times the D6. Everything else should be okay. And it does look okay. And you can see here that now we do have answers that are sensible for all of them. So then we can just go back to the case. And all we need here is an XLOOKUP. I can look up all these items from column A and then pull column B. And then I can just paste this 2 more times, or 3. And we should have, oh, we are off slightly for 71, but otherwise have everything else correct. So let's just double check 71. Oh, 71 is because we put it up there. So all we have to do here is example 2, whatever. Um, Part doesn't matter. All right, and so now we have all the items. That's just an extra thing to look out for. But yeah, this is how I would solve this case.